right. Boogity boo boo Pikachu. Devin the Dream Haney against Vasily Lomachenko for a follow up to the last film study that I was doing between, or that we were doing between Vasily and Teofimo, which I'm hoping to see if we can maybe use this as a bit of a proof of concept um, to talk about how, or for me at least, to I guess see was I right in assuming before that Teofimo was doing certain things to Loma, but Loma could have really challenged the positions more than he was. And you'll see in this fight against Devin. Sorry for that hilarious. Sorry again for that noise. So got rid of that. That was my phone alarm going off. What's a recording without a hiccup, right? We do it all in one take. There's your proof. So anyway, so we're gonna look at this. I also want to talk a lot about how Lomachenko improved or changed after his fight with Teofimo, and I just stress changed because there's good and bad things about it, right? Like I think that there was a benefit to what he was doing before when he was fighting Teofimo in that turning the nightlight off a little bit so you guys can so it doesn't look like my screen is completely black. I do think he changed a bit after his fight with Teofimo, but obviously a lot of people noticed he got a lot more aggressive, right? And he stopped, I want to say stopped thinking as much, but I think that's also kind of true. Like he stopped taking his time. And I think that's going to come back to bite him, or comes back to bite him in this fight with Devin Haney, because whereas he really, I think by the end of the fight with Teofimo, he had Teofimo figured out. He was walking all over Teofimo by the end of that fight. But he doesn't really quite solve Devin Haney by the end of their fight, even though he does have some success. And like I said, I do think, I'm talking about differences in how I might score things or how I think about things in terms of like winning a fight versus like winning on the cards. Right? I do think the right guy won this fight. Let's be clear up front. I do think Devin Haney won. That his punches were harder and more impactful, more significant. And in that sense, I do think the right guy won. Just like I think Teofimo technically won, right? Hard punches were harder, more significant, more impactful, based on the way that we score boxing criteria. But I like to talk about this because I think, in terms of how much you're figuring out your opponent, right? As sort of a different way to think about fights and to sort of maybe explain, I guess, why people are admittedly fanboying over Loma. I myself am a fanboy, or fangirling, or fan non-binary, or whatever you have you. To explain why people are fanning out over Loma, and at the same time sort of have some kind of point to that, right? So anyway, let's get into this. This is kind of funny, the way that he gets to like touch gloves, he just like fucking pokes him. I'm never gonna get it with that. Shout outs to Matthew Feltz, by the way. If you haven't gone and watched his stuff, his film analysis is amazing. I learned most of what I learned from him. He has some great film studies, both on YouTube and on his Patreon. But one of the things that he pointed out, that I kind of almost like agree with, explains this, is that Devin Haney's checking his range here, actually, which is kind of funny. And I'm like, interesting. Although I don't know, me personally, like, how do I put it? I don't know. I always find the idea of people checking their range to be kind of bizarre to me, because it just doesn't make sense to me, at least. Like, I'm like, if you're a professional fighter, how do you not know how far away something is from you to be able to touch it, right? Like, I don't know. Like, when I was doing martial arts a lot, I was like, I mean, I'm not doing it now, but even now, I'm like, I feel like I have a pretty good sense of like how close something is to me. And I've been out of practice for years, let alone these guys who are fucking professional fighters. All they do, like day in, day out, they eat, sleep, and breathe this shit, right? I don't know. So that's why I'm kind of like, I've always feel like when people say, oh, they're checking the range, like, that's not really what you mean. Like, you don't mean like, can I reach out and touch this object? Like, that's, I don't want to say asinine, but like, that's asinine. Like, there's no way that people don't know that, right? There's more to it than that, which we did kind of talk about a bit in the last fight too, that it's not really so much range of like, can I touch this thing? It's range of like, can you react fast enough to get out of the way of what I'm doing? Can I react to what you're doing fast enough to get out of the way of what you're throwing at me, right? Like, that there's these other things going on. It's not just like, can I physically touch this other thing, right? And and you're checking like positioning and angles and what your opponent is expecting and what they're not expecting, right? So there's like all these other things going into it when we say like range, air quotes. It's not just like, can I touch this thing? Um, or at least that's how I think about it. Because, like I said, it doesn't really seem to make sense to me to say that someone who's a professional fighter, all they do is not all they do is hit things all day, but let's be real. Like, all you do is hit things all day. How do you not know how far enough something away is for you to touch? Like, that's, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, tangent aside, starting the first round, God, I hate the zoom in, or at least I hate not being able to see them right away. But they come out. Shout out to Top Rick again for showing us the feet. We get to see, again, lots more jockeying for positioning, much more aggressive. Devin Haney stance right in comparison to Teofimo, a lot tighter. Again, you see Devin Haney kind of taking this interesting, right? Like we talked about this in the fight with Loma and Teofimo, that there was a scene where Loma tried to get around Teofimo, and Teofimo was able to hit him with the right uppercut because they were basically at right angles to each other, like this right here, actually. So it's kind of funny, right, that immediately you see this sort of position happen, right? And that Devin Haney almost looks like he's, let's see, does he step to his right? Yeah, he kind of does, right? And again, Devin Haney, you can see he's kind of trying to cut off the ring here. And immediately, right, like circles this way to get this kind of ring positioning. So again, right, like ring generalship, immediately asserting himself, taking command of the center of the ring. Lots of jockeying and feinting for position already. Loma trying some like light level changes, some setting his weight, right? You can see like right there, right? He's like setting down, dropping his weight. What that does, if you're not necessarily super familiar with that, I would see people do this more when I did Taekwondo, which is not what I used to do. I actually did Kenpo for a long time before I did Taekwondo, but in Taekwondo, you would also see people kind of do these little like pop sets. And you'll still see it in fighting sometimes too, in boxing. Because what it does when you drop your weight like that is it sets your feet so that you can move immediately when your opponent does something. So sometimes you'll see people do this ahead of what their opponent is doing to try to line up that timing so that they can move in reaction to whatever their opponent does, whether that's like forward, to the side, back, or what have you. But setting and like popping your way down like that can do that. So sometimes this isn't just offensive, this is also defensive, but it basically is just preparing to move. So it can be both. Again, you see a little pump fake here by Loma, right? Again, coming out much more aggressively, looking at their feet, right? And also, again, Loma circling around Haney. Again, they're kind of just feeling each other out, looking at each other right now, which is why I think Devin Haney's kind of just letting Loma like walk basically around him, right? Like he had the ring so well cut off, and he basically gave the whole position away. But that's because he's just kind of feeling Loma out for now. And again, Loma doing the classic: bring my right hand up, bring my right hand up, bring my right hand up. Are you gonna punch me yet? I almost wonder if people have watched this, like his tape, and realized that this is a thing that he does so that they don't bite on it. I feel like that's got to be it because it's almost like so predictable, right? Or at least if I'm able to notice this immediately, like I have to feel like other people have probably watched his tape and figured that out, and that's why that doesn't work as well for him as it used to. Again, right? You see this kind of this thing that I talked about that Loma does before that I love that he does. That again doesn't work a lot against Devin Haney, but he will get it to work like once or twice. This big step back, and then with the big step back with his left foot, his right foot comes back to his left foot, and then his right foot comes forward again, right? And then he does the same thing. Like he just did it right there, and he's about to do it again. Big step back, left foot, small, like right foot comes back to his left foot, right foot comes forward, right? So it's this like fake disengage, re-engage that he does, that he's looking to see like, are you still paying attention to me? And if you're not, he's going to jump all fucking over you, right? But Devin Haney is not, or at least Loma is I guess kind of still figuring things out, right? Like it's literally the first 5 seconds to fight, so they're not at a point where they're comfortable enough yet to do that. Again, a little pump fake right there to stop Devin Haney's timing, right? Like you see this little boop right there, right as Devin Haney's foot comes up and he pauses, and I'm kind of like exaggerating this by pausing it so I'll let it go free through right there, right? See how he goes like, oh, moves back a little bit. Which is kind of what allows Loma to take this little step right here. And then when Devin Haney slips down like this and then moves his foot over, right, Again, notice the dot 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 right to Loma's face from this right hand, and that's why he slips right there, right? So again, Loma being good job being defensively responsible, getting out of the way. Like it's kind of like what my dad used to be an EMT. Like my dad would call like evasive driving, right? When you drive. Speaking of which, for those of you who don't know, this is a great little driving lesson. Evasive driving is anticipating what other I was about to say your opponent, what other people are going to do, and basically anticipating them doing stupid shit so that you don't get hit when they do stupid shit. Um, like shooting a gap and cutting you off, or turning directly in front of you when they're not supposed to, or that sort of thing, right? Or all sorts of things, so that you basically position yourself in a way so that when stupid shit happens, you don't get hit or you're not in the way of like the collision or whatever it is that's going to happen, right? Like moving in anticipation of what can happen next, so that you're already prepared, right? So that's like kind of what Loma is doing here. He's like anticipating what his opponent is going to do, and that's what I mean when I say like being defensively responsible. And again, stole that term shamelessly. Matt Fouts, go check him out. He's awesome. A lot of his stuff, he'll talk a lot about that. But that's what Loma's doing here, right? And that's what we kind of part of what we mean when we say being like defensively responsible, is that he's taking this slip because he doesn't want to get punched in the face by Devin Haney's right hand. So he's moving in anticipation of them doing that. And again, that's also because, right, especially because this foot is here now, he can throw this shot really hard. And that's why he's slipping. And again, we see sort of this interesting bit of like head movement from Devin Haney that I kind of want to talk about here, right? That he's kind of like, he bobs to the right a bit, and that's when Loma kind of like pumps him. And then he dips, comes in, moves left to again stay under the jab before he moves this foot over. So again, Devin Haney also being defensively responsible, right? Moving his head so he doesn't just get punched in the face. You see Loma doesn't do a whole lot here other than move back, right, when he does that slip too. So again, like I said, I think that's really mostly him moving away from the jab. Again, Devin Haney moving his feet here and his left foot to line up what I suspect would be a jab. Let's see if he jabs here, actually. Loma again, right, moving his hand. And this time I don't think it's so much to get Devin Haney to punch at him. This time he's like moving his hand down to line up with Devin Haney's timing so that he's able to parry any kind of jab that comes in, right? I wouldn't be surprised if he circles out here, yeah. I'm willing to bet that's going to happen. And I'm willing to bet Devin Haney's going to jump all over him because like I said, I have watched this fight before, but I forget. So right here, he's kind of, again, Devin Haney is probing. Again, really good job by Devin. Right, big step. Once his opponent takes a big step, trying to keep that gap close. Interestingly, somewhat unlike Teofimo, right? That he realized maybe in their camp one of the mistakes that Teofimo made was he was waiting too long for Loma to come to him in the back half of the fight. Devin Haney's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna close the gap and rush. There's a saying like Wing Chun, loss of rush of contact. As soon as your opponent moves away, you want to rush to get right on top of them again. And that's like what Devin Haney's doing right here. As soon as Loma backs up, he's taking huge steps to get right in his face again. He wants to keep Loma backing up. That's the game plan. You'll see him do that a lot this whole fight. So let's see. Again, interestingly, right? Contrast to the opening of his fight against Teofimo, right? Like I said, the difference in stance. Devin Haney stands a lot tighter, lots of fast, quick steps. Again, Devin Haney not slow by any measure or metric. Again, Loma doing this sort of fake disengage, re-engage, probe to get Devin Haney to try to stop in his tracks so that he's not just walking him down. But still not doing a whole lot. And again, right, here's that jab I was telling you about, and there's that defense. Again, I've watched this fight before, but I haven't watched it recently, so most of this is just whatever I remember from my subconscious, plus my impressions, like looking at it, right? So again, right, you see this little thing where I actually kind of watch their feet again to see if Devin Haney's doing that lineup, right? Like I said before here, he was trying to move his feet to line up. Let's see if he does that again here. Yup, bingo. Watch that back foot. Again, it's all on the feet, right? As soon as that back foot comes over, boom, jab comes out. That's why Loma's got this hand moving in rhythm with Devin Haney so that he parries this shot when it comes up, right? So it's a double purpose, right? It's not just him trying to get Devin Haney to punch at him. It's also him, being defensively responsible, anticipating the jab that might come. And interestingly, Devin Haney's kind of like caught in a weird foot position here where he's like stepped to the inside to try to throw this jab and then has like moved his left foot outside, which I suspect is because of how he trains, or I'm going to guess this might be because of how he trains. I have no idea, but I'm just making a theory crafting, right? Like these are unformed opinions. So I'm just doing this like live, so you guys can also kind of get a feel for like how to think through the stuff that you see and figure out explanations for it, right? But I suspect this is because based on how he's kind of taught or schooled in the Mayweather style, right? That Mayweather likes to do this like jab right hand, roll out to the left side, right, to dodge under the lead hook, at least for like a southpaw, or that's kind of the idea, right? So that's why I'm suspecting that even though this is kind of like, how do I put it? This looks kind of weird and it is kind of awkward and janky. Like it doesn't make sense to do it necessarily from this angle, which again, this is why you can kind of tell like it's early in the fight. They're still kind of feeling out the positioning. It doesn't make sense for Devin Haney to be trying to attack the inside, but keep his foot on the outside like this, right? Like if he wants to do this on this angle, if he wants to take an outside angle, his foot should be like back here, or like he should be farther this way than he is. But if he wants to take like a deep attack inside, it makes more sense usually for the foot to be on the inside here, unless he's going to do something like just jab once and roll out, which makes more sense for this stage of the fight because they're just doing non-committal stuff like that, as opposed to like doing what Teofimo did, where he fucking like yeeted himself at Loma and throws these spearing, lunging right hands, or tries to get, or what Teofimo didn't do, but Loma does to people a lot, where he throws repeated punches and continues to move more and more and more outside until he's all the way around you, right? And if you're going to do that, it would make more sense for Devin Haney. It would make more sense for Devin Haney's feet to be his back foot to be farther outside, closer to being outside Loma's, for like Loma's back basically than it is right here. But you can tell that's not what he's going for. So again, you see that little jab, pushes Loma off the line. Again, Devin Haney feeling himself, feeling confident, like to see it, love to see it. Immediately popping another jab, right? And again, let's kind of want to see this actually too, because it looks like, again, this fight, not that nothing happened in the Loma fight or in the Teofimo fight, but a lot is going on in this fight, even more so. Right, so again, as soon as Loma slips outside, Devin Haney using his control, popping that jab, trying to see if he can get to him. Realizing, like, I don't want him to do that, so that's why he's doing that little bit of control. Devin Haney here, interestingly looking like he's kind of trading the initiative here. He's going defensively. Yeah, right that. As soon as kind of Loma slipped outside, he stops, he sets, because he wants to see what Loma's going to do. And Loma just like, okay, take the read, right? And again, you see this kind of similar positioning to, ooh, see that right there? Ooh, there's the tell, right? His right foot dropping down, putting his weight on it. What do we talk about in the Teofimo fight? What does that mean? It means that right uppercut's coming, right? And so again, you can kind of see that's what the tell is, this, or even this early on, right, of what Devin Haney's kind of thinking. Again, they're kind of lining up with each other on the line and in rhythm, right? They're both kind of in range now. And again, interestingly enough, right, partly the downside and part of for Devin Haney, or at least like the thing that makes this fight so interesting to watch, is that they're both in range right away, because Devin Haney wants to be this close to Loma. He wants to be right in front of him this whole fight. And that's how this fight's going to go, which is what makes it so fun to watch, because they're both just winging shit at each other pretty much the whole time. But because of that, he's giving up any reach or range advantage that he would have also, which I don't know if he has a reach advantage or not, but I'd be really surprised if he doesn't have one, since I'm pretty sure he's a good bit taller than Loma. Again, right, you see the guys trying out different feints. You see Devin Haney going for the dip level change, long step in. And again, you see this sort of matched rhythm here, right? Down, up, down, up, down, up. That they have. Right here, down, up, and then back. Again, right, Loma kind of like thinking out loud, right? Almost like showing his hand before he's going to move forward. Devin Haney again, right? Just like Loma did earlier, pumping that front hand. Not necessarily as a pump fake, but just to line up with whatever his opponent might be about to throw. To again try to parry that, which is why you kind of see his hand fidgeting a whole lot here. Again, mixing in the slip. Again, guarding here, right? Because he sees Loma's hand coming up. I'm kind of surprised Loma hasn't already tried to, or maybe he will, drop down and come with an up jab. which ironically I think is about what Devin Haney's about to do. Again, right? Devin Haney showing that slip and rising, like, again, really good read from Devin Haney, right? Watch when he slips down. What does Loma do? That hand drops a bit, right? Hand drops a bit. Poor Loma. Donk. Eats a left hook for his trouble. A good shot. And again, a nice, really strong body shot from Devin Haney right there, too. Again, pinning that hand in place before he throws that body shot. And then also, I forget who it was that says this, but you'll hear about this principle sometimes in boxing of, like, you always want to finish your combos with, like, a jab or a hook. Partly for this reason, or I think it was specifically with the jab, right? And again, this is partly why. This isn't a real jab, but what it does is it pins this hand in from your opponent. Or if they're orthodox, which they're not, but Loma's feet are kind of like this, so this is a similar position to what someone would be in if they were orthodox anyway. What putting your left hand, your front hand out like this does is it blocks the punching lane for the right hand, which slows it down, right? So it can't hit you or hit you as hard. Which is why they say finish your combos with the jab, because what it does is it will pin that punch, occupy this punching lane so they can't throw the right hand back at you. Or it'll pin the right hand in place if they haven't thrown it. Or if you punch them in the face with a jab, it'll discourage them from throwing anything else. It'll make them want to keep that hand at home, keep those guns holstered, right? So again, right, Devin Haney coming out very, very, very aggressive, even more than Teofimo, which is why we can tell you, right, like, immediately getting these results and able to hit Loma, unlike Teofimo, who was not able to do that for a little bit. That they kind of danced around each other a lot more. And again, I think that's partly because Devin Haney already knows that this is how he can beat Loma. And that's why he's really confident in doing this. Again, Devin Haney has kind of already found success with this little dip, right? Which is why he keeps doing it. He keeps going back to this, well, when I drop down like this, I can get underneath you and still punch, right? With that looping right hand to the body, which Loma still has not managed to figure a way around just yet. Again, right, Devin Haney trying to control with the jab when Loma slips outside. We're trying to time him with that jab. Right when that foot's about to come down. Right? You can see that little, I'll rewind because it's so slight. But right, he slips outside, comes back to normal, and then watch, he's like back. His weight's like on his back foot. It's about to come forward a little bit. Right here, it's moving forward. And then as soon as that happens, Devin Haney wants to put that punch out, right? So again, God, these young kids and their freaking eyes. And their SNAC sponsors will. Throwing that jab out, able to see just where his opponent's feet are moving just from looking right at him is crazy. But that's why these guys are pro fighters, because they're really good at that. Again, Loma trying to get this slip outside probe, trying to see what Devin Haney does. Now I'm just kind of watching to see what was the opening here. Not really a whole lot again, but you'll see something else interesting too here, right? He kind of shelves up and like turtles, like he pulls his hands in and turns this way so that he's like turning to his left. He's turning to his left. Devin Haney is turning to his left, which is something that mirrors a little interaction that you'll see later in this fight that Teofimo did to Loma. Also, for Devin Haney, I think will actually kind of take this and improve on it, because when I was watching Teofimo, I thought Teofimo did this more, but he actually doesn't do it as much as I thought, or maybe I just missed it because I was tired. But where Teofimo would step back and move his front foot back to better line up the right hand of the uppercut coming across his body to hit Lomachenko. And that looks like almost what Devin Haney's doing right here, right? When Loma steps in, right? He pushes down with his left foot, moves his left foot back, and turns a little bit here, right? Let's see that again. Let's see. Right here. He doesn't actually, interestingly enough here, I don't think he actually moves his left foot back, but he just shifts his weight to his back foot, right? So it clears this space right here. Like his head was here, and now it's here. So now he can punch in this space, which is what he wants if Loma tries to get around him. Which, again, is why I think Loma doesn't just move around him here, right? Because Loma realizes that. He's like, I don't have enough space. And again, like we talked about with Teofimo, right? Like, wide stances are a buffer, because they keep your opponent from stepping into you or stepping too close to you. And Devin Haney doesn't necessarily have a really wide stance, but again, right, he's like leaning back to the back, to his back foot, and making that foot be a little bit of a barrier, so that Loma can't just like walk on top of him and walk right around him, giving him an extra buffer. Again, there's that jab we talked about. Again, right, Devin Haney using that hand as soon as he comes on the line, throwing the jab out, slipping because he thinks this is a jab coming back from Loma, but it's not. Loma's just probing right now. Loma not really able to get a whole lot going so far. It's pretty much been all Devin Haney. Devin Haney coming out a lot more aggressive, showing off that he is a much, much better front foot fighter than Teofimo was, and having a lot more success early on for that reason. Loma here finally starting to get stuff going. Again, you can see Devin Haney knowing that Lomachenko is really good with his lead hand, knowing how important the lead hand battle is. Fucking like triple jabs and then steps all. Look at how fucking deep he's stepping too. Pins this hand all the way into Loma's face, jamming him up, and then rips that right hand to the body. I actually think he's not even just pinning the right hand. I think he's actually pinning like almost both hands. Once he realizes Loma's bringing him in, right, and then he's trying to push this way to jam Loma's hands back into his body, like almost towards his back shoulder. And Loma's kind of able to step out, but not quite able to get away from that right hand. Again, because Devin Haney, right, taking advantage of that reach advantage to get control of the space, and then once he has it, right, he has that hand back, now he's like, I'm not letting you get anywhere now, right? He's not letting him take anything back, whereas like Teofimo would kind of just, let his hand come back or not do as much. Devin Haney is pinning that hand and lunging in to throw shots. So again, a lot more aggression coming out. And you see, this is Loma's first sort of actual attempt to do something, because he's just been getting walked all over by Devin Haney. You see him do this little like double, triple pump slip. Again, just trying to probe and maybe get the left hand going a little bit to see like what the angle's like. And again, having Devin Haney thinking about that left hand, because I think Devin Haney right now has just been only acting like Lomachenko has a right hand, or not really only acting like it, but like he's been doing a lot of lead hand control, and maybe Loma's, I think, feeling that a little bit, and that's why Loma's going to his like, again, still using his jab, right, trying to control lead hand space, or like not using his jab, but using his front hand, right. But that's kind of like what he's really trying to probe with is this left hand, because he realizes his front hand has been getting control a lot. And then this is sort of a push to keep Devin Haney's hand away from him, or to not jab him as he slips to this position, so that he can set his weight and then disengage and back up. And again, right, like as opposed to just coming out and punching, again, Loma always the slow starter, right, gathering information. He's trying to just see, okay, how does Devin Haney react when I start to get around him, right? And in this case, he gets a response, which isn't really telling a whole lot, but it is something, right? Which is mainly that, like, in this case, at least, Devin Haney chose to say, okay, I'm going to disengage and I'm just going to circle around, get on my bike. Because he has fast feet too. So that's something else, right, that he's like testing or kind of learning about Devin Haney right now too. Again, you see this interesting now, right? Like we talked before about in the Teofimo fight. Teofimo did this to Loma, and Devin Haney's been doing it to Loma in the front half of this fight, right? That Loma says, okay, you want to circle back around to the right. Now you're back against the ropes. And now, again, anticipating, right, where his opponent's going to be and lining this up like we talked about before, stepping on the inside for the jab. Even though he finishes this by like stepping outside, the left hand of the body is probably there or close, right? But again, Loma doesn't really like to take risks like this too early, at least, which is why he's getting outworked by Devin Haney in this round. Because Devin Haney is landing and taking those risks, and Loma is not. Let's see. And I think actually coming back to watch this, I think Loma's actually trying to do to Devin Haney what Devin Haney just did to him. He's trying to pin that hand in place, and he doesn't quite get it, and that's why he's like, ah, shit. And he looks to slip outside and maybe throw a left hand to the body, but he can't do it because Devin Haney is smart and disengages right here. but he is starting to get more control of the space. And I think this is around when Loma like drops a flurry on Devin Haney, but we'll see. Again, you see both guys kind of doing this like walk towards the corner here. Devin Haney, right, doing what you want to try to do when you're on the outside, which is circle, continue to step. Don't let your opponent get set, so you can kind of try to circle around and get space back, get like center ring back. But the thing is, as they get closer and closer to the corner, you know, the engagement starts to become more and more inevitable because eventually they're just going to run into the other set of ropes, and Devin Haney's going to literally like walk himself into a corner, right? So it's interesting because you can kind of, right, you can feel that kind of tension. Both fighters know it too, which is why you can kind of feel that tension as they're approaching. You know, these steps get like tighter and tighter and tighter until eventually they just force the issue or force the engagement here. Devin Haney kind of does, let's see, by like, again, attacking or trying to pin his hand in place. And you can't really see it because the ref's walking past him, but it looks like he either throws a shot to the body or he basically muscles Loma off of him because he knows he can do it. Yeah, he just fucking runs right into him and shoves him back, and pushes, like, bumps him back with his body. Again, easy to do when you have the size and the strength advantage, right? Which Devin Haney definitely does, and he knows he has it in this fight too, for sure. I kind of want to watch this because the first like punch Loma landed, to see what he does to set this up. I wonder if he actually dips inside or outside. Let's see. I didn't quite catch it before. So interesting, right? Here's a different probe, right? He slips down again. Devin Haney doing the almost Teofimo. Oh, you like to dip? Well, I'm gonna dip back at you. Except not really. I think he's actually just kind of moving out of the way of a jab there. And to be fair, Devin Haney actually did it first. So, but again, right? Both guys trying to time their jab as their opponent's footsteps are moving. Again, it's all in the feet, boys and girls and non-binary folk and trans folk and everybody else out there. So let's see, right? Oh, again, he just look pop. Talk about like using that little set to prep before you move and then exploding out of it, right? Again, Loma slipping to avoid the jab here. Coming back to the middle, again getting to the line first. Now Devin Haney's kind of behind because Loma has, if you look at where these feet are pointed, right, he has access to Devin Haney's center line. He's going to take advantage of that in a second, or I think he takes advantage of that in a second. Gets the dip. Interestingly enough, they're kind of exchanging feints now. Now Devin Haney's like a little bit ahead of him. Now he's ahead of Devin Haney, right? Because his foot's basically almost down. Devin Haney's foot's up. He's got the inside angle. There we go. And he gets to the line first. And that's why that shot lands, right? So again, right, it's all in the feet. You'll see this continual, this is why, like, you know, it's a game of inches. Why you see these guys jockeying for positioning repeatedly like this, right? Taking these repeated small little steps because they know, at least, you know, when your opponent's in range, right, when they're in range to touch you, and they have this positional advantage, they can hit you, which is why you see them taking these fast steps like this. And even though Devin Haney's trying to get his hand up, right, to time it, it's funny too, right? Because didn't I talk about that? I thought I talked about that earlier. Like, I was like, I'm surprised that Lomachenko has not tried to up jab underneath Devin Haney's lead hand control yet. And that's exactly what he does, or almost what he does right here. Well, I don't know if that's necessarily, let's see, does it actually go under his hand? Sorta. Kind of does. It like goes under his hand, then goes past it and comes back over like his hand. But I should say, I guess it's not him purposely trying to get under, but he is like exploring that angle, right, with that little dip right there, even if he doesn't actually throw it from here. And again, right, this is Loma like classically wearing you down with lots of feints. Like he keeps feinting and feinting and feinting and looking for the one thing you don't react to, and then he hits you when you don't react, right? That's what he's kind of looking for. So right, so he sees the slip outside, or we'll see actually in a second, the slip outside. He reacts to that. He's ready for that. The dip down. Oh, he's ready for that. He moved back. Set. Oh, Devin Haney's coming forward. I got to back up a little bit. Sets right here to re-engage, right? Again, that's that fake disengage, re-engage that Devin Haney doesn't see because his foot is just such a slight movement there from back to forward. And as soon as Devin Haney doesn't react, oh, see, there you go. Yeah, you can see that his hand is in front of Devin Haney. So it is under the lead hand. Bonk. And he scores. And then and then he's immediately like, get the fuck out of here. He's like, oh, slip the right hand, and he's like, get out of here. I don't like this weight transfer look. He's like, this what happens after this is me getting punched with the right hand, so I'm gonna get the fuck out. And boy does he ever. He gets the hell out of there really quick. He does his little jaunt because he's happy. Again, Devin Haney trying to get that lead hand control. Or just trying to jab. Let's see. Right, trying to time Loma when he steps, but Loma's already made that adjustment, right? Or is makes the adjustment this time, or reads it this time, right? Slipping under that jab. Again, something that we talked about in the Teofimo fight that you could see Devin Haney was doing too, is timing Loma when he steps. And I wonder if that's something that he's maybe picked up, or at least was able to read this time. He feels that timing from Devin Haney coming, and then reads correctly that there's a slip coming. I think it's also probably because Devin Haney's feet were moving too, that he was kind of able to read that punch coming. Kind of like before, right? With when Devin Haney moved that right foot around and lined up the jab, he slipped. Or lined up the right hand, he slipped to the outside, right? You can see Devin Haney's feet right here. Let's see. One inside foot, right? Just like Loma just did to him, getting that foot inside. And as soon as that foot comes down, he knows, like, Loma knows that jab's coming, right? Because he can feel it. Oh. Again, these guys' eyes are fucking incredible. That's why they're pro fighters, because I'm like, I would never be able to see this shit when I was sparring somebody, man. That's why I'm not a pro fighter. But, right, he sees that little, like, stutter almost in Devin's, like, upper body, right? There, almost, of his weight moving. And also the hand coming. And again, right, you see this step back, and then he kind of turned. Devin Haney take the step back and kind of turn to open up shots from the right hand this way. And he's kind of changing the angle, right? See how they're not like in a straight line anymore? Not that they were before, but right, he's trying to tighten this angle up, right? Make it less of a 180 degree and more of a 90 degree angle. Now it's like 165 or 160 or 155, something like that. Who knows? 140, 135, 135, yeah, we'll probably say. Anyway, to try to make this punch a little bit easier to land or to shoot. And again, right, there you see that defensive responsibility with the hand coming up. Again, Devin Haney, really fucking fast footwork here. Not just, preventing Loma from getting around him, but also using that hand right to push this left hand down and then swivel out this way. Very smart. Again, from him. Again, Loma putting his hands up as soon as Devin Haney steps in, because he knows Devin Haney might want to step in with a jab here. And then again, both guys trying to time each other on their steps, right? As Devin Haney steps over, that right hand jab comes in. And again, I want to see, I think this might be because Loma beats him to the line again. Let's see. Sorta. Yeah, kinda. His right foot comes down just a second before, or at the same time as Devin Haney's does, to throw this punch. But he kind of beats him because he's already in position, whereas Devin Haney is still moving over this way. So, like I said before, right, in terms of having access to your opponent's center line, your center line, actually, I'll give you some way to explain it. It's almost like, see this little line in Loma's back right here? It's like a line that goes from the center of the top of your head down through your tailbone, right? And you can see it from the front. When I say like access to someone's center line, I usually mean in the chest, so on the front side of their body, right? So the side you can't see right now because both the fighters' backs are to us. That's what I mean when I'm talking about access to someone's center line. You don't want someone to have access to your center line because it's where all your vital targets are, right? Your nose, your forehead, your eyes, your mouth, your groin, your ribs, all your nice little internal organs that are underneath your rib cage. All things you don't want somebody to hit, which are ironically also all the legal scoring, most of all the legal scoring areas in boxing too. Kind of like I talked about, I think it was like my first round audio recording for the Teofimo fight, right? You don't want people to have access to all these different target areas at the same time because you can only ever block like 2, 3, maybe 4 at once. And so if your opponent has access to 2, 3, or 4 or 5 of them, they have access to more than you can cover, which means you're probably going to get hit in one of them, right? So that's why you don't want people to have access to your center line. That's why Loma's taking advantage of having that access by getting inside of Devin Haney first here, right? Which is why he's almost able to hit Devin Haney as he's coming over. And then again, right, looking to see what Devin Haney does. Devin Haney's answer is, I'm going to shell up and sit on the back foot. And Loma sees that he's kind of prepared, so he's like, all right, I don't want to just jump in. And again, he's been kind of catching Devin Haney when he steps back and comes back in, right? Fake disengage, re-engage, comes right back to the line, catches him moving his feet again, and that's why he's actually able to hit him, because Devin Haney gets lazy and steps in front of him when he really shouldn't have. Because right here, it looks like Loma's out of range, right? Which is why he takes this step here, and then Loma takes a step here, and he tries to circle inside, and is just getting a little too big in the britches for himself because he's stepping right through Loma's range, and Loma lets him know it by clocking him with throwing a couple punches again, right? Taking advantage of Loma saying you're not the only one that can take advantage of the space. Devin Haney's still winning the round, by the way, for sure. Has landed the cleaner punches, right? Like, that's on the guard. The jab, I think, was also on the guard. Again, right? Devin Haney, good defensive responsibility to keep that hand up. Shielding that jab, right? But this uppercut, I think, actually does land between the guard. And again, nice job by Loma, right? Again, much more confident than he was in the beginning of the fight against Teofimo. And again, despite Devin Haney's fast footwork, he ain't no Teofimo. He doesn't get right out of there like Teo does. So Loma takes that angle real quick and throws that uppercut. Letting Devin Haney know right away, you let me get around you like this, son, I'm going to beat your ass all night long. You can expect more where that came from. I'm expecting Devin Haney to come back with some aggression here. We'll see. Looking for his get back, as Andre Ward says. Again, right, that pump fake, that dip down that he's been going to all round. Doesn't get any reaction out of Loma this time. And so Devin Haney's like, that's weird. And so again, he just tries to, all right, well, I took the position I wanted. I'm going to punch at you while you try to disengage, but just kind of be non-committal. Again, like I said, that's why I'm thinking that punch did land from Loma. Because you can see Devin Haney's much more cautious now than he was in the beginning of the round. He was just fucking throwing himself all at him. Again, right, Devin Haney trying to time Loma's steps with this jab. Not succeeding very well. Again, Loma showing good head movement, getting around it. Again, Loma kind of just testing his slips right here, right? The double slip to then get outside, all the way outside, and get center ring back. And now, again, center ring. Dude's feet still unbelievable, even at the ripe old age of, I don't know how old he is, but I think he's like 35 now. Loma, again, just going for a simple circle outside here, right? See the foot going outside. Again, throwing a little pop jab. Don't really know what that was supposed to do, though. If that's supposed to control space or to get Devin Haney to back off a little. Again, right, you can see Devin Haney going back to that technique from earlier, pin that right hand in place. We're trying to keep that right hand at home. Makes me wonder if that's what Loma was doing earlier, too. Again, Devin Haney still a little spooked from that uppercut. Not being as aggressive as he was earlier, right? Here before, you would have seen him fucking jump all over Lomachenko like he did in the beginning of the round, and he's not doing it now as much. And again, I think that's because he maybe didn't expect Loma to be as aggressive as he's being now. Let's see. Again, right, you see Loma doing a much better job than he was against Teofimo, holding his ground, right, not just backing up, continuing to stay in front of his opponent on the line of engagement, right? Here you can see they're in pretty much like a 180 almost degree angle, but not quite, because, right, Loma wants this angle. He wants to get around Devin Haney, but really that would mean Loma wants to almost be here with both of his feet. His right foot, basically, his toe is pointing like this way, so he can easily just get right around Devin Haney. But he's also trying to cut off the ring, right? So that's kind of the difficult duality of wanting to get around your opponent, but also not wanting to let them just get away. Again, Devin Haney, right, trying to take that inside lane. Again, he's game of inches, these tiny little baby steps. As soon as he sees that foot come down from Loma, he's thinking, ooh, Loma's going to jab, which is why he dips under. And then he rises before that. Loma's done this a couple times, right, where he's disengaged, re-engaged, and caught him. When Loma comes back, ironically, Loma gets caught with his own trick this time. As Loma's coming back, that's when he decides to attack him, right? When he's coming back into range. Again with the jab double jab right hand. Right, jab-ish pin of the front hand, and then trying to go for that right hand to the body, but Loma's already kind of prepared. And again, right, Loma not just letting his opponent take space for free, kind of comes back into range. Sometimes you can almost tell, right? He's like too relaxed. He's about to attack. He's so loose right here too. Again, amazing, right? And so he does this little leap, like up and over. He comes down, up, and then almost like throws a jab and drops his weight, so it pushes Devin Haney's hand down. And then, right, is looking to hit Devin Haney after he moves from that slip. Which I wonder if that's something they kind of caught from Devin Haney's tape, that they thought he might have been vulnerable, right? Because you've seen that like twice now that Loma's done that. He's like taken angles or gotten positional advantage, and then he's trying to hit Devin Haney when he moves his head. So again, right, Loma like trying to control the head. Devin Haney comes up, standing right here notably, so that Devin Haney can't just bring his right foot over and get like a stable position or footing back, which puts him in this really fucking awkward ass position here where he can easily get punched, which is what Loma's trying to do. None of those shots really seem to score though, except maybe that last one. Maybe gets around the guard a little, hits on the ear, right? Let's see if he throws does he throw a right hook here? Kind of, but Devin Haney leans and gets away from it. This one looks like it kind of lands on the shoulder for the most part. That one also doesn't quite hit. Sorry about that. And you can see Devin Haney also trying to fight back and show Loma that, like, I can fight back too at this range, right? So again, right, just because he has the reach, Devin Haney has the reach advantage doesn't mean he can't punch up close to, or doesn't always mean the fighter can't do that. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Again, you see Loma bringing up that like high guard, trying to probe. Devin Haney kind of reading it, or reading that this is a probe, and so he attacks it, right? Like we talked about before, way to beat a probe is to attack it. Because if they're not really bringing any real pressure your way, you could feel free to attack. Which is why when he does this kind of like big dip level change, Devin Haney is like, that's obviously a feint, so I'm going to attack you. And again, right, we see this kind of similar pattern to what we saw in the Teofimo fight that we were talking about. Like that Teofimo started to try to time Loma when Loma came back up from these dips and these level changes, which is part of what Loma wants, so that he has a timing to attack you off of. Because if you reliably start to punch every time he comes back up from the level change, what he's going to do is he's going to dip, come back, and then not come back up right away. He's going to start to come back up and then dip back down into like low middle, low left, low right head slot instead, and then counter you or slip or move around you based off of that. Pause for some water. Lovely little grimace from Cambosis in the corner here. Again, right, Loma testing that slip outside. Trying to see, okay, what does Devin Haney react to? Right. Slip outside, come back to middle. No answer. Interestingly enough, Loma almost like giving him the same opportunity too, of saying like, when I slip outside and come back in, and it's kind of unfortunate because you can't see their feet here. I'm wondering if he used that slip to move his feet into position to attack. Probably, if I had to guess. Let's see. Yeah, he did actually. This is kind of interesting, right? And we saw him do this like once or twice in the Teofimo fight too, where he like slipped outside, came back to neutral position, and then used the pivot of his foot coming back to neutral to pop and pivot his back foot to push and pop down and push himself further outside, which looks like what he does here. If you watch his front foot, right, as he comes back to center, his front foot moves this way. And I can't quite tell if his back foot moves, but his front foot definitely does to try to get outside. Right, so he slips, starts to come back, yeah, then his foot moves right there. You see a little pop motion. the jerking motion from his foot too, right? So again, right, he's also kind of, giving it away a bit, which is why Devin Haney's trying to control him when he comes back to a neutral position here, is he knows Loma can still move and attack from here, or oftentimes does, but is maybe not paying attention to the fact that Loma's not really in range that time to attack him. Whereas here he is, right? Or he's getting closer. And again now, Devin Haney, again, good lead hand control, parrying that hand down. And again, Loma, right, leaving that hand down because he wants to look and see what's coming back. Is a jab coming back? Is a hook coming back? Right? Because remember, he ate that left hook royally against Teofimo early on. Both guys coming back to the line, keeping those hands up. Again, Loma giving him a different look already, right? Varied approaches, trying to get real close and almost put his hand on top of Devin's to jam him. Again, I'm almost wondering if this is actually what he was trying to do. He's trying to get Devin to see how he's trying to see how close can I get to Devin before he punches me. Basically, look at this. He just fucking leans into him, right? Like he shuffles in even more, and he's thinking like, okay, pull counter, either pull counter or slip under, right? And that's, I think, maybe what he's kind of feeling out right here is like, okay, at what range or distance do I need to be in to where, or positions do I need to be in, like range, distance, and position do I need to be in to where you think you can hit me so that I know when to dodge, right? Like, when do you like to attack me based on when I'm at, right? So this is him kind of feeling that out by just fucking like leaning into this space and then just kind of ducking away. Once he gets the information, he's like, okay, that's useful to know. So despite the fact that he knows this, though, it doesn't really quite help him, as you're about to see in a second, because what Devin Haney's going to do is what Devin Haney's been doing a whole round, which is, okay, well, if you're just going to fucking stand there and let me attack you, I'm going to pin your hand to your face and punch you in the body, which is right what he's trying to do right there. Again, Loma taking the outside angle, and you can see Devin Haney, interestingly enough, maybe hasn't drilled this enough in the gym, or just doesn't have as good athleticism as Teofimo does, or as good footwork as Teofimo, who has like fucking Harry Houdini feet. Right? Because you can tell he's there to be hit. Right? Loma gets around him almost immediately and is almost able to hit him. And the only reason he doesn't throw right here, I think, is because he's expecting Devin Haney to throw, which is why he's guarding with this hand instead. With both hands, actually. Keeping that hand like down in case, trying to control Devin Haney's hand, push his hand down, and then also keep his left hand up in case Devin Haney throws a straight right hand. Again, Loma realizing like, oh, when I move forward in high guard, just standing straight up like this, he doesn't really seem to do anything. So let's see what I can do off of that, right? And again, trying to set up this slip outside like he usually does. Devin Haney, not really sure when the punch is coming again, because you can see his hand kind of fidgeting here. Again, Loma, good probe, right? Getting a new answer. Trying to see, like, what if I probe and throw a jab at you? And he tries to immediately jab back. You can see the... This makes me laugh. I wonder if Devin Haney has a reach advantage. Let's look. Literally can't touch him. Almost gets punched in the face. Yeah, I think he has a reach advantage. And I forget too, but I suspect he had an even bigger reach advantage than Teofimo. Like, I want to say it was more. It's more than 3 inches that Devin Haney has. Again, right, lead hand battle. Devin Haney trying to block this hand to prevent defense, as Andre calls it. Which is why Loma's gonna say, okay, if you're gonna stick your hand out, then I'm gonna slip under it. And so that gets Devin Haney to pull his hand back, right? So this little interplay that you see. Now, I'm willing to bet Devin Haney's probably gonna punch at him to get around this. Or maybe not. Loma's just gonna come back up. And keep that hand there to parry. And then step out, which he does. Again, you see this kind of, right now we see, again, the guy's moving through the layers really fast. Like Devin Haney, or not Devin Haney, Tim Bradley called this like a high-speed chess match, and this is one of the I mean, every every match of boxing is a high-speed chess match, but this one especially, I think, makes it really easy to see and fun to analyze because of it. Because there's very explicit, overt things that the guys are doing constantly to jockey for position, to one up each other, right? Every second. That makes it really easy to see. Whereas other times, it's much more subtle, little like weight transitions or footsteps or body rhythms and timings. Whereas here, it's much more explicit, right? Like he's jabbing, so Devin Haney wants to jab to counter. He's coming in, so Devin Haney doesn't want to let him do that probe jab thing he did before, so he tries to prevent it by sticking his hand out. He tries to do that again by sticking his hand out. Loma ducks under it, right? And this is in the span of a nice little like 5-8 seconds. So again, right, we're like 2 layers in now. We've gone, or 2, 3, or 4 levels in now, right? Because we've done the first action in sparring. I think it's in Japanese they call it like kumite, and then there's like ippon kumite, which is like one-step sparring, right? Which is where you and your opponent get one action, which is usually like your opponent does an attack and then you get one move as a defense. So like, or you get like, which is usually simplest way to explain. The simplest example of it is like your opponent throws a straight punch at you, and you don't know when it's coming, but after the instructor says start, they can throw it at any time. They can't like pump fake you or move or do anything else. They're just in a stance to throw a punch. And usually it's the attack is like declared, or at least when our instructors did, they would tell us what it's going to be, right? And then they throw a straight punch at you, and you could step off to the side or step back and block, and then throw your one punch back, and that would be it. Then we would stop there. So that's like ippon kumite. And then there's other types of kumite after that are like 2-step sparring, which would be like your opponent can throw a punch, throws their attack at you, you block, throw a punch, and then they can respond to that, and then it stops there. That's like 2-step sparring. And then there's like 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's just like free sparring, right? So that's all to illustrate this idea of like what we're talking about of like levels, right? How many actions deep are we getting into these sort of like chains, right? So we're already like fucking 4 layers deep at this point, right? Because the first layer is like just the feint from Loma, and then the first response from Devin Haney is the punch over. So that's like your first step, right? And then it's feint and lead hand control now as like the second layer or level. And then it's lead hand control and slip. So now this is like the third layer. And then the fourth layer, because he's coming back up, and now Devin Haney's doing something else to control him, even though it's like the same thing, but he's controlling him after a different movement, right? So that's why I kind of think of this as like the fourth layer. And then it's fucking stiff arming him in the face to try to just push him away, right? So that's like your fourth layer. So again, like, and that's what, like, however many minutes and seconds into the fight we're at right now. High-speed chess, very much so. And again, Devin Haney got him to back off with that kind of like stiff arm before, which is why you see him do it here. And then a jab to try to push Loma back out of this slip position here. Out of this position here. And you can tell this is also a reaction to Loma's slip, right? But he wants to push him with this jab out of this position. Which, again, very rudimentary way to control the space. Works well when you have a nice big, like, 4-inch reach advantage, but is not very smart. Or it doesn't work for the long term, I should say. Because once you are reduced to just being able to punch, you can easily become predictable. Though Devin Haney does a really good job of mixing things up in this fight and not becoming predictable. But right, when the only thing you can do is punch, it gets easier for Loma to just try to slip around you. He does the Manny Pacquiao, like the split entry here, the lead left hand. Again, right, Loma being much, much, much more aggressive. This is kind of what I was talking about before, but this is kind of the difference, actually, though, between him and Teofimo. Him in this fight and him and Teofimo is that Devin Haney wants to be on top of him, but Teofimo wanted to keep Loma at a distance, right? And so before, Loma wasn't, I mean, it's partly because Loma's taking more risks, but I think also because Devin Haney again, this is sort of the mistake on Devin Haney's part, which is one of the things that Teofimo did right, which is why Teofimo pitched almost, not like a shutout, but almost a shutout, whereas Devin Haney's fight was a lot closer. Because Teofimo realized, just don't ever let him get in range. Don't ever let him fucking get close to you, and he can't hit you, right? And that was kind of what Teofimo was doing to keep Lomachenko off of him, but Devin Haney's not doing that. He's letting Loma get close to him, which is a mistake. It's like absolutely a mistake. He should not be even letting Loma get anywhere fucking near him. But right, in contrast to the Teofimo fight, right, where we talked about how Loma couldn't do anything because he was just standing there. Now you're kind of realizing, like, you know what, maybe I do need to give Teofimo more credit, and I need to go back to that tape and see how Teofimo was timing him, how he was attacking different timings every time, because I'm sure he was. And we did talk about that a little bit. Right, but you can see, in contrast to the Teofimo fight, where their feet were like fucking... Loma's front foot was like where Loma's back foot is right now, in terms of the distance away. Like, he was this far away from Teofimo. His front foot was like here. His back foot was like over here. Like, that's where they started the fight, basically. But now, he's like fucking on top of Devin Haney. This is like what Loma got to in like round 4, 5, 6 against Teofimo. It took him a lot longer to get this close, because Teofimo did such a good job of keeping Lomachenko away from him. And because Devin Haney is being stupid and letting Lomachenko walk right up to him, interestingly enough here, right, like, he almost steps on Devin Haney's foot, so he's actually even closer than this. Like we talked about in the Teofimo fight, Lomachenko wants to be so close to you that his toes are basically going to touch your heel when he steps past you. And that's when he's, like, right there. That's when he's, like, almost in position to punch. And he's not in this instance, which is why he doesn't. Because Devin Haney is like we talked about with Teofimo, right, using the stance as a buffer. Like, if your head's here over your front foot, this is where you get punched, right? But because your stance is wide, or his stance is a little bit wider here, or it looks like it's a little bit wider, right, his head is not over his front foot, so Loma is not in distance to punch Devin, right? Which is what Devin wants, because he doesn't want to get punched. So again, he's using his stance as a buffer. But this is why Loma's like, I have to get so close, because not only does he have to get this close just for his little T-Rex arms to be in range to punch, but he also has to get this extra layer of distance out of the way too. So even just fucking like having his toes on your heel is not close enough for him to hit you, right? But still, the fact that he's this close is still way too close. Like, Devin Haney should not be letting him get that close, or this close. Actually, that's probably a better example, because before they were only that close because Devin was punching him, but here it's not. He just willingly lets Loma walk right up to him, which is why he's about to get punched. And again, you can see here Devin kind of being a little bit almost too aggressive, stepping right on top of Loma's foot, and Loma's like, well, if you're going to step right into my range, I'm going to show you that that's a mistake. So he controls this lead hand right here. And then as soon as Devin Haney tries to step around and opens up that center line, like we talked about you don't want to do, gets punched right in the face. Or Loma tries to attack him, at least. Can't really tell if that lands. I think it does, but kind of hard to tell. Mostly. Maybe. Who knows? They kind of just get stuck all over each other. Devin Haney doing what Devin Haney do and giving Lomachenko a nice hug around the butt. And Loma just leaning on his head for all he's worth. Trying to prevent that Solito headbutt he got hit with like forever years ago. And this is kind of interesting as a reaction, right? Like we talked about layers of stuff. So again, this is Loma reacting to what Devin Haney did earlier, where Devin Haney gave him that like forearm L shape to block and pin his hands. So here, he like almost kind of drops down and puts himself a little bit outside to put himself in a position where Devin Haney can't really jab, or isn't jabbing at him, I guess. And he kind of feels that this like isn't a jab based on like the angle of his opponent's arm, right? That's not a jab. So he realizes he can like push against this and continue to slide this way. And that's what he does, right? And this is what we talked about in the Teofimo fight. Like, he wants this position right here. He wants his head right against your elbow, especially even more like this, because you can't punch. You can't even, like, if he was on the inside of his elbow with his hand not pinned like this, Devin Haney could maybe step back and throw like a hook or something. But like this, he can't do anything. This hand is totally jammed up. Can't do nothing, which is what Loma wants. And he can punch you from here, right? Like we talked about how foot on heel head basically like in your chest. This is right where his little T-Rex arms do their best work. So this is the spot where Loma wants to be. And again, like we talked about in this fight, right? A lot more aggressive, gets here a lot faster. Like he didn't get there till fucking like round 8 against Teofimo, but he's here already against Devin Haney in the first round. So again, things moving a lot faster. And again, Loma taking risks, could easily get body shotted here. And ironically enough, we'll see Devin Haney make that adjustment later, where he does not let Loma just step in for free like this, because he really shouldn't. That said, though, I think this time, I think he kind of gets, I don't really know how or why he gets Devin Haney here so easily. That's why. So he makes this move. I'm trying to think about, like, why does this work? Why does he just get in like this? Why isn't Devin Haney prepared for this? And the first reason is because it's early in the fight. He hasn't seen Loma do this yet. Loma doesn't really lunge normally like this. But the second reason is because of Devin Haney's stance. If you look at his stance, look how fucking awful this stance is. My God, it's like a fucking triangle. Look how straight up and down, totally flat-footed, feet not set at all, body high in the air. He knows Devin Haney's not ready to do anything right now, right? He can't punch that hard because he's not sitting down. He knows he's taking a load off of his legs because I just made him use those legs a lot by leaning on his head. So he knows Devin Haney's not really set down, ready to do anything, which is why when his feet are moving like this, he realizes, oh, now's a good time to move, right? So he does this little shuffle up with his back foot, and then like a deep step. The left foot comes around and he rolls. Like I said, he's going to get hit for that later. Devin Haney doing the Teofimo and just fucking shoving him away. But again, right, like, good move by Lomachenko, close the distance, taking advantage of that kind of semi-dirty tactic of leaning on your opponent's head to take advantage of how Devin Haney's legs are now tired to getting close. You see this right hand come from Devin Haney. This actually doesn't, I thought this was a punch, but it looks like it's not. It looks like this was actually going to be like a parry, or maybe it was going to be a punch, but then he's like, I don't have position to throw a punch. And again, because Devin Haney knows he has the strength advantage, right? His decision here is not to move around and use his footwork. It's to just plant this foot and shove Loma off of him and then step around, right? To, again, get around to that side that he wants to get to where he can throw this right hand to Loma's body, like he's been trying to do all night long. Now here he gets caught again, which is kind of funny. I think we talked about the fake disengage, re-engage. Again, Loma realizing something that people don't adapt to, and again, so again, right, like, there's two parts to this, right? To not take stuff away from Teofimo, to try again, like, we're using this as or at least I am kind of using this to look at, like, okay, what was it that Teofimo was doing that Devin Haney isn't doing, right? What was it that he was doing that was so effective at keeping Loma off of him? And the big thing that we talked about a lot in that study was timing, and that Teofimo would be timing Loma and using feints and probes and attacking different timings when Loma was moving to interrupt Loma's movement so that he couldn't get close to him. Whereas here, right, like, there's no control coming from Devin Haney. And that's why he's kind of, in this section here, there's no control coming from Devin Haney, right? This is where you should be trying to keep Loma at this distance right here, right, on the end of your jab. But he doesn't do anything. So Loma's like, okay, step forward, keep my hand up in case he jabs. Nothing happens, so then he takes another step, and he just jumps all over him, right? But to Loma's credit also, right, the adjustment that you see him make right here that he wasn't doing against Teofimo is before, when he would get into this position, he would not challenge this aggressively, right? You would not see him, like, leap in like that against Teofimo. You would not see him, take this very aggressive step here and jab and jump all over Teofimo, right? So he is taking more risks, and that's like a great example of one of them, right? And the other thing, too, that we kind of talked about that was kind of frustrating for me watching him in that fight, too, is that there would be times where I was like, you can definitely challenge more than you are right now, where it felt like it. Who knows? Maybe I'm still in denial. Probably a little bit. Copium, as they call it. Right, but, like, one of the things that he had as an opportunity in Teofimo's fight, sorry to keep rewinding this, but, like, I'm about to show it here, because it's right at the point where I keep stopping to rewind. When he takes this little step, right, Devin Haney doesn't do anything, he doesn't react, he punches him in the face. there were a lot of times I feel like in the Teofimo fight where he would see this or do this kind of probe and do like a step and get no reaction, and then never took advantage of it. Then Teofimo took a while to counter it, but he had the chance to, continue to advance the position, even though he wasn't as close as he is right now to Devin Haney, such that he couldn't really quite punch Teofimo. Again, still had the chance to do more to advance the position than he was at the time, I think, which would have been more risks, right? But he who dares wins, in the words of the SAS. So this jab scores, right? Again, Devin Haney frantically trying to get out of the way. God, look at that. And then, don't know if that third one lands. Looks like it kind of does, but it gets stopped-ish because Devin Haney does a good job of like leaning into his opponent here, right? And ducking down kind of illegally, actually illegally, like below the waist. His head's below the waist. And then moving up and into Loma to jam him and then frame off of him and step out, right? So again, really good footwork by Devin Haney there. Again, you see both guys trying to come back on the line. Devin Haney, sick of getting punched by Loma, is like, I'm just going to come with my own jab now. I'm going to hold your head and see how you like it. And again, trying to rip that right hand to the body. Not sure if that lands there. Might have landed. Again, right? When we talk about difference from before, right? Like Customato, we kind of talked about that quote in the Teofimo analysis, like whoever has the most confidence in their weapons wins. Again, who dares wins, right? Despite the fact that Devin Haney doing a good job here trying to interrupt Loma when Loma's coming forward, Loma's not losing confidence in himself and his weapons and is continuing to press and continuing to take risks, right? And again, intelligent risks, calculated risks, but still like taking risks, right? Like he almost gets hit there or maybe gets clipped a little bit there, right? And right here, slips, comes forward. I think, where's the jab from Devin? There it is, right? He's trying to come forward, trying to like slip, move his way in, literally almost gets hit right there. Much riskier than Loma usually does, right? But again, he's like refined his game. He's calculated it just enough so that these kind of punches are not like, just barely hitting him or clipping, just barely clipping him or just barely missing him now, as opposed to before where he was extremely safe, like super far out of range, right? And again, I think that's because he also knows Devin Haney does not have anywhere near the power at lightweight that Teofimo does, where Teofimo was knocking guys out with like one punch. Devin Haney's not doing that, not even close. Does not say Devin Haney's weak. Devin Haney can punch for sure. I mean, he's the lightweight fucking champion. He's undisputed champion for a reason, but definitely doesn't hit anywhere near as hard as Teofimo does. So again, backing him up with that high jab, trying to push Loma down. And again, you can kind of see here this jab is also like a little bit higher. For that reason, I think because he's kind of looking for that again, that little bit of head control that he does, where he like pushes your head down to push you into this body shot, but also make it so that you can't just push your weight up and move your legs away to get away from this body shot like Loma's doing here. You'll see him do that more effectively later on, where he's able to really push Loma down so that he can't just move away. And then he has no choice but to kind of just stand there and eat the body shot. Which is on the verge of legality, we'll say, because technically it's like holding and hitting. It's not the same, because holding and hitting, at least the way that in practice the referees police it, is like your hand is like around their head and it's still there when you punch them and it's still there after you've punched them and it hasn't moved. That's like holding and hitting, right? But this is like holding them and then letting go-ish, like right before the punch makes contact, so you can't say I'm holding and hitting at the same time. And so it's like this stupid little loophole bullshit that people do to get around the rules. But it's effective, what can I say, for sure. And again, right, we talked before about levels deep and level changes, right, and how Loma would dip and come back up and then sometimes get controlled, or slip and get controlled. So he slips here, and again, a straight right hand from Devin, but he doesn't back off, right? Again, he's like not afraid, like show no fear from the Avatar: The Last Airbender, if you remember that fucking meme of the little kid saying that to Sokka, show no fear. He almost eats his right hand right in the face and stays right up in his grill. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. And he goes right back to probing, right? With this low, high, again, no reaction, so his feet come forward. Again, he kind of sees this sort of It's almost like this kind of thing too of like, you know, he sees you think, and then as soon as he sees you think, he moves his feet, right? He's like, oh, he sees that little reaction of like Devin Haney be like, oh, he freezes a little bit. He's like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, I don't know what he's doing. Oh, I gotta think. And as soon as like Loma sees him start to think, boom, that foot comes forward. He's like, oh, I got you. You froze, son. You blinked first. And so that's why he's able to take this positional advantage, right, and use that lead hand to kind of get lead hand control. He kind of realizes Devin Haney's not in a position, maybe not necessarily in a position that he can jab from, because he can jab from here for sure, and hard, right? We've seen him kind of do it, but he knows that Devin Haney hasn't done that yet. Really, Devin Haney hasn't really liked to jab from this square position, right? So that I think is why Loma kind of reads this position as, oh, Devin Haney's kind of freezing, not Devin Haney's gonna jab at me from here, right? But he also has lead hand control, which is why he feels safe advancing here. And again, getting that angle he wants, right? Like, look at the angle of their feet, that it's kind of shallower still. Again, Loma taking position with just these kind of foot feints and positional moves, right? And again, little Loma really picking up the speed now. My God. Doing stuff he did in round like 6 against Teofimo right now against Devin Haney, which is crazy, right? So again, you see this sort of layers deep, right? Like lead hand control, slip, a punch, that's like 2 steps or 1 step or 2 step. And then you see the feint, depending on when you start to count it, right? The feint, not there, sorry. Feint, 2, lead hand control, and then he tries to get around him and it doesn't work, right? Or Devin Haney takes a quick step back. And now you'll see, again, this sort of, he doesn't quite slip, but this little, oh God, his feet are so ridiculous. Like, look at these fucking steps, man. I almost just want to count to be like, Loma makes like 8 steps to people's 2 because he's just that fucking good, right? So shuffle, 1, 2, another 1, 2, so it's like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, oh my God, I can't even. I'm gonna have to like put this in fucking half speed. Jesus, I was feeling ashamed, and I have to put it at half speed to count. I really am. I'm like embarrassed. I want to do it with full speed now. And just we marvel at the footwork, right? Let's see, we'll count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There you go, 13. To, I don't know, how many did Devin Haney do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Maybe. 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. The other thing, too, though, you can't see because I slowed it down too much, is that he does this weird, like, little shift pivot in his stance in between, right? Which is really, really cool. That I don't think I've seen him do that before to people. And I really love that. That's super sexy. That's like super fucking cool. Not yet. Where is it? There. Oh, that little pivot. Oh, man. That's fucking cool. And again, this is him, again, right? Feinting that straight left hand, pivot outside, and again, taking advantage of that to, instead of throwing a punch, he uses that shift from his upper body to drag this leg forward as he pivots back to a neutral position where his right shoulder is coming back this way toward the front of his body, right? So he used that to basically just get position, almost, to like feint the left hand and then bring that foot forward again. And then you can see he starts to throw there, but he realizes Devin Haney's about to throw, and so brings his hand back to guard. Again, gets lead hand control, and then is like, oh shit. Ooh. Probably gets clipped here. Again, taking more risks than he usually was before. But still, very much pressing the action much more than he was before. And again, right, this is why you see Devin Haney turning more this way, because he wants this angle that he creates for himself, which actually ends up saving his ass, right? Bails him out, right? Stepping back and then throwing this spearing right hand, right? Making this nice right angle where he can attack Lomachenko's center line. You can see that's what Devin Haney's trying to do, and how he gradually edges more. It's actually funny too, right? You almost see him give it away a little bit here. He thinks it's coming here, which is why he steps back on an angle here. And then he actually almost like goes back to this angle here. And then right, you see him start to edge more and more and more this way, right, with his foot, until Loma finally tries to get around him, and then he starts to throw it, right? So again, Devin Haney, right, it's all on the feet. Laying traps, trying to set Loma up for that right hand. And again, right, we see Loma gradually making his way forward with more and more positional changes. There's that right uppercut. Boom, told you. Christmas present. Wrapped special just for Lomachenko. But Loma just undeterred. Not really quite scoring with any of those, though. Devin Haney starting to grab his legs. Very sick of getting his head held down. Again, both guys trying to feint or line up their rhythm or their movement here. Again, I think Loma hasn't necessarily clocked his opponent's foot position here. And realized that that's why Devin Haney was able to counter him before. Whereas here, Devin Haney is not really in a good position to counter. So I wonder if this will actually be where Devin Haney gets hit. Let's see. Yep. Because this is one of the highlights from the fight, too. I think that's partly why. So again, this is where you can kind of see Loma maybe rushing a little bit. Usually he's a little bit more careful in how he throws these shots so that they land, whereas he's really just trying to volume punch Devin Haney to death, machine gun him here. But one of them gets through. That left hand right there gets through for sure. Because again, you can see now he gets the outside foot position he wants. He gets Devin Haney trapped in this corner. This right cross here actually kind of also does that function. And interestingly enough, serves like 3 purposes here. So this is a really interesting right cross. Right? He's trying to punch him. Right? He's expecting Devin Haney, I think, to dip here, which he doesn't. He stands up. But the other thing this does, if you notice where Lomachenko's foot is, see how his foot is like in a straight line to the corner? And his forearms braced this way? It pushes Devin Haney back into the corner. And that's the second thing. And the third thing that it does, because it goes so far across his body, is it like attaches itself to Devin Haney's right arm. So Devin Haney can't throw a straight right hand here because Loma's like leaping in, putting his whole body weight behind this. So it blocks and jams up Devin Haney's right hand and shoves him back into the corner. So you can see Devin Haney like tries to throw it right there, but he can't, and then he eats this left hand right to the face. So again, right, like really good job by Lomachenko to control Devin Haney there. Just shove him back into the corner so that he could punch him in the face with the left hand. And then a lot of these other shots don't really score. But you also see something else that's kind of cool here too. Again, a throwback to the Teofimo fight at the very end. Did you see it? It's the last punch. Not this one. That right there. Although, actually, wait, no, I take that back. That ended up not being a punch. But this is sort of like what I'm alluding to is there's a bunch of stuff that happens at the Teofimo fight where he like leans into him and tries to push him away with both hands, and then Loma would throw this left hook around the guard to hit right here. In this case, though, he's not trying to hit him, I think, as much as he is just trying to control Devin Haney's right hand so that Devin Haney doesn't throw a straight right hand. where it's kind of like a half hook, half. Was going to be a hook, then kind of just turned into hand control because it didn't really throw it that hard. And then this right hand here, jab, is to pin that left hand in place so that he can exit out safely and still try to get back to center ring and cut off the ring, except he can't because the referee's standing right in the fucking way. Because they're about to call time, I guess. And again, there's more to that we could probably do or talk about. But holy shit, that's an hour and a half already. My God. Just on the first round, right? Because I'd be willing to bet. So sure, let's do something else now the last like 30 minutes because I like making 2-hour videos, I guess. Let's see what he does here that's managed to set this up, right? Like, why does Lomachenko, right? Like we talked about in the Teofimo fight, Loma does this a lot in the last like 30 seconds of a round. He'll pay off all the stuff that he's learned in the last 2.5 minutes, right? So now I kind of want to look and notice, like, okay, so what has he learned that he's been able to do? Right, why is he able to do this now, all of a sudden, at the end of the round, right? Like, there's got to be something going on that he's doing, right? This is me trying to give you guys, like, my thought process to think out loud of how to approach film study, right? When people score, usually they're doing something right. They're setting it up. There's stuff that's happened before this. So every time you see something happen where somebody scores like this, it's kind of a big deal. Boom, like that. You want to replay it and figure out not just what's happening in the moment, but also like what led up to this. Why was this able to happen all of a sudden, right? So interestingly enough, I think there's like a couple things here. So one, there's this lead hand control, like we've been talking about all round long, that he's kind of figured out a way to get Devin's jab to stay at home. There's this high, let's see, does it start from a high guard position? I think it kind of does. Yeah, it does. So this is one of the other things, right, that he's kind of picked up on that, again, like I talked about, and again, this is a difference from the Teofimo fight, right? Look how far away their feet are. Not just that they're close, but I mean, like, this time they're not. They're actually farther away. And in the Teofimo fight, right, like, you wouldn't see him taking these kind of positional risks, getting closer and closer and closer. But here he is. Partly because I think Devin Haney was easier to figure out than Teofimo was. But you see him attacking now and taking risks where he wasn't really doing this before against Teofimo. And like I said, I think that is because Teofimo is actually doing something to interrupt his time that he wasn't aware of, that maybe he is aware of now. So again, you see, oh, and this is what I was actually going to talk about. In the Teofimo fight, like I talked about, I think I'd mentioned this before, at one point was doing this like set high in a loose stance in front of him, and Teofimo wasn't reacting to that, and he didn't take advantage of it. But here, because he was either shook or scared or what, I don't know, but here you see him do it, right? And you see him basically just does this until Devin Haney doesn't react and then hits him, which is kind of crazy. That he just does the same shit like 4 times in a row, and then the one time Devin Haney doesn't react, he hits him, right? So here he's kind of like soft slipping down, but not coming up right away, right? So again, there's another mix-up, another wrinkle, right? Whereas most of the time before, he's gone down and come up. So again, he's breaking this pattern he's had this whole time, which is why Devin Haney, I think, is not really able to time him here. So that's the first new thing he's doing, right? Again, stepping in high guard, that's something he learned earlier in the round, like we talked about, right? Where he would step in high guard, and Devin Haney would like want to try to control him. And again, he feels that control coming, right? So he's kind of able to parry it with the jab and not be just pushed off like he kind of was before. So again, there's your second thing, right? That pays off from the round. And then they almost reset, but not quite. And they get kind of closer because Devin Haney doesn't really have anywhere else left to go. Again, because Loma didn't get pushed back, right? So he's paying off what he's used before to keep control of the space, keep the distance close. Again, approaching in high guard because he thinks Devin Haney wants to jab. And kind of, again, has sort of felt out this rhythm, right? That he's like, oh, I do this, and then the pressure comes. I do this, and then the pressure comes, right? But he's able to just kind of back up because he knows that this, at least so far, and at least right now, is working. And unlike before, right, where you saw him take that risk and then eat that counter to the body because Devin Haney had this right angle, now he knows. He's like, ooh, Devin Haney doesn't have that right angle stance. Now it's safe for me to punch, so I'm going to fucking wail on this kid. And so, let's see, right, again, he comes in, feels when the pressure's going to come, but doesn't let Devin Haney get away,
Doesn't let him just walk away. And he also, speaking of which, here's your fourth thing. He doesn't get close enough for Devin Haney to push him away, right? That's the other thing that he doesn't let Devin Haney do. He doesn't let Devin Haney take advantage of the size and strength advantage, right? And he just fucking wears him down mentally by just staying in this like awkward fucking limbo ass range, probing him over and over again to just wear him down. I think that's the other reason too. This is like the end of the round when you're more likely to be mentally tired. That's the other reason why this works. Why Loma's doing this right now. Really just trying to test Devin Haney mentally right now to see if he's mentally fatigued. And so there's that on top of it also, right? And again, we talked about that rhythm of moving in, feeling the pressure coming, comes back. But again, his back foot doesn't move, so he stays in range, but is still in this limbo. He's not quite close enough for Devin Haney to push him, but he's not too far away that he can't threaten Devin Haney, which is where he wants to be. And again, does this little set motion, comes forward, goes to control the lead hand. No lead hand control comes, so he goes right all over him, right? And so he's basically almost done this thing that worked like once earlier in the round, like 3-4 fucking times, and almost just. It's not the exact same thing, obviously, but it's almost the same thing. It's like the same sort of look or the same approach, right? Like this high guard, up high stance. And again, that pop set that we talked about before that had some like limited success or mixed success is what he does to get this, to catch on to Devin Haney. Right? Because you can see when he dips, Devin Haney's reacting, right? Or when he gets like a little bit too close, Devin Haney reacts. When he starts to move in a little bit more, right, like Devin Haney reacts. And then again, he comes in, Devin Haney reacts. Just keeps the pressure on, right? And then again, right, this time he feels like he has 1, 2, 3. And then this time, this is where Devin Haney falls asleep. Devin Haney doesn't do anything. And then that's when he's like, all right, now I'm going to jump all over you, right? And like we talked about before, dropping your weight and setting, right? He's expecting control to come here. He's expecting Devin Haney to throw a shot, right? Which is why he does this little bop right there so that he's ready for whatever Devin Haney does. And when Devin Haney doesn't do anything, he's like, oh, boy, you're done now. And then he explodes, right? Up out of that. Actually, there's 2 sets there. So again, there's another even one, right? So again, layering even more. Because he realized before something that he did that Devin Haney couldn't react to, right? Where we talked about that little like shift pivot he had to move forward and drag his back foot forward that he did in the mid, like in this range, in the like middle of their range, while he was moving forward instead of just taking like full steps, taking these weird like shifts to move his feet instead of just only moving his feet. I think again because he's realizing people are starting to time him based on when he moves his feet. So again, instead of just like picking it straight up and down, he's like shifting and then not dragging it, but like using that shift to move the foot instead of just picking it up and putting it down. And so again, right, you see him trying to get Devin Haney to time him based off the steps. So he like pops there, pops again there, and controls because again he's expecting lead hand control. When it doesn't come here, he knows, oh, I got him, and that's when he's like leaps forward and starts throwing these shots, right? And again, unlike before, right, to pay off the 5th or 6th thing, I told you, man, this shit gets so fucking deep, especially in this match where there's so much shit going on, where he had Devin Haney pinned like this, and he's throwing these flurries, but Devin Haney just ducks under him. What does he do this time so that Devin Haney can't do that? Right? Like we talked about. Did you catch it? Did you see it? Call me fucking Prestige right now, Christopher Nolan. Are you watching closely? There it was again. It's that right hand, that cross, right? That pins him back in the corner so that he can't bend down below the waist. And then he eats this left hand super hard, right? So again, right, like kind of like rough tactics, but again, adapting, layering before, right? Whereas before he wouldn't do that. He would just throw this shot and not really get anything out of Devin Haney. And again, also like positioning, right? Because there's the angle required to set up the shot too. He doesn't go too far. That's actually the thing, actually, that's kind of funny, right? He doesn't go too, like we talked about, he doesn't get too close to Devin Haney. And it's interesting because he needs to be close enough to be in range to throw his shots, right? But ironically, this works in his favor that Devin Haney's in the corner like this because Devin Haney can't go any farther back, right? So because of that, he knows, well, you can't dip anywhere farther back. So I just have to be a little bit more back from you, a little bit more in front of you than I was before. Because what would happen before when Loma would go around him and throw this right cross over Devin Haney's head is Devin Haney would just roll down under it because Loma was almost like too far past him, basically, right? Like his right shoulder was like on Devin Haney's right shoulder. And then when he would punch like that, and the punch would come just straight from Devin Haney's side, he would just dip down under it, right? That's how Devin Haney's been reacting to that. But this time, maybe he's just not really like consciously thinking this or realizing this, but I'll just say this is the effect it has, right? See how his shoulder's not touching Devin Haney. He's in front of him now. Look where his foot is, right? It's a little bit in front of, halfway to Devin Haney's foot, not toe on heel like we were before, or past that like it was before when he would flurry. But here, right, when he throws this right cross, he doesn't throw it behind Devin Haney. He throws it in front of him because he's trying to block that dip, like we talked about, right? And then that's why that left hand lands. So again, right, like all this crazy shit going on in this round, like kind of leads into this, or like plays into this, or like leads up to this, right? And then again, you see the 15 punches that come once, and again, right? See, we talked about it, right? That left hand doesn't work because it's too close. That one works, but now see where their shoulders are, right? They're like level, and so again, you'll see that right hand goes and dips under it, and Devin Haney gets on top of him, right? And pushes him away. Now, interestingly enough, I kind of want to actually see if I can go back and find that earlier flurry, or some of the earlier flurries by Loma in this round, to see why they don't work in comparison to this one. So, apologies, but I'm going to watch it. Watch it. Sped up speed this time. So we're not, well, hello. So we're not stuck here too long. And to analyze, right? This is what you want to do, right? Like, look at the tactic the fighter was using before, and then look at previous examples of it in the round, and think about, why did it work this other time? Why didn't it work this time? Using like the things we've talked about, right? Like, where are their feet? What's the rhythm like? And again, it's easiest to do this in the first round because nothing else has happened yet, and you don't have to think about all the pretext in the later rounds. But you want to use this to think about like what sort of things are going on that basically make this not work the first time, but do make it work the second time. So again, right, he's got the similar positional advantage. He's starting to cut off the ring, but has not managed to quite layer all of those things on top of each other like we talked about to get Devin Haney all the way back in that corner like he wants, right? He hasn't won enough engagements in a row because he hasn't learned the things he needs to learn yet that get Devin Haney pushed back. So that's part of it, right? Why this doesn't work as well, because he doesn't have Devin Haney pinned in the corner, right? He hasn't learned enough yet to be able to win all those engagements in a row to push Devin Haney back space-wise to the corner to set that up, right? So that's part of it. He's not quite as close, again, partly because Devin Haney's not back in the corner this time. Devin Haney kind of dips immediately. The interesting thing here, too, which maybe this is kind of the mistake on Devin Haney's part, is that, but the reason why Devin Haney doesn't generally want to dip where he was before, I think, is because he doesn't want to dip right into a left uppercut, right? Which is why when Devin Haney does dip later in that like flurry at the end of the round, right? Like I said, they're basically standing next to each other, and Loma's throwing this left jab basically from right next to Devin Haney, is when Devin Haney dips away because he realizes, I can't really throw an uppercut here because I can dip down to my right and away from him, and I'm out of range of the uppercut now, right? Whereas before, when Loma was standing right in front of him in that corner, he couldn't dip straight down like he is right here, because if he does, he's going to eat a left uppercut. That's what he's worried about, because he's like right in front of Loma. And here, he's still kind of in range for that, which is why this is kind of an interesting, like, so bad it's good risky move here. But he also does kind of do a good job, like, jamming it, knowing that Loma he hasn't done this enough for Loma to like pick it up as a read yet, which is why he's not really able to do anything. But I will say, interestingly enough now, I kind of want to go back again, right, and go back to the end of the round and watch this flurry here to see why Devin Haney doesn't do that, right? Why doesn't Devin Haney dip or slip down to this like head slot change? This is the other thing too, right? Thinking about this. Why can't Devin Haney do that? Lomachenko took that position first, right? So he's already kind of set here this time. So now Devin Haney's like, ah, shit, even though he doesn't throw uppercuts, Loma doesn't really, from this position, like to try to catch me slipping down, I can't really slip down now because he's already there, right? Now what he's worried about is like, oh, Loma's going to up jab me, or he's going to throw a straight left hand, which Loma has done, right? Earlier in this round, that was one of the ways he tried to get in on Devin Haney that almost landed / like clipped him, right? It was a straight left hand, the Manny Pacquiao split entry, we call it, right? And this is why Devin Haney doesn't dip right here to get away from it, because now, right, he's like, I don't want to go down because I'm not getting away from Loma's weapons now, positionally. And again, right, Loma also like timing this very well, realizing that Devin Haney likes to slip when they're in this range if he's high coming in, which is why he chooses to come in low here, right? And why Devin Haney doesn't really have an answer, because it's like, oh shit, if he jabbed him, normally I would slip here, but I can't slip down, but I can't do that because he's already there. Again, he starts high and mixes it up right away. Instead of setting low, comes in high. And again, I think that's also, by the way, speaking of which, that's also a purpose that's served by these little plants that he does right here, right? That he's not just also figuring out Devin Haney's timing of jabbing at him, which is why these level changes are good, right? But he's also dropping down and setting in case Devin Haney tries to drop down as well, right? Like taking the space before Devin Haney can get there of that lower level. And again, right, you can see again, he's like, that's why he has this sort of like deep step, right? That deep step there, and then this deep drop here is also for that, so that if Devin Haney slips now, he's right there to throw like a left uppercut or a right hook to counter if Devin Haney tries to slip down like he was doing before, to dip. And again, right, staying right in this limbo range. And again, now that he's kind of peeled back the other layers of Devin Haney's defense, all he has left is to jab, right? And again, you see Loma taking this like deep set stance, right? The other thing too that this kind of does that I think is kind of interesting to talk about too is he's kind of staying in an interesting spot. And I'll be interested to see later if this doesn't work. But I suspect or wonder if this also kind of took away the uppercut for Devin Haney, and that's why he couldn't really use it. Like I said before, I think it is their feet too, right? Like his foot isn't over, it doesn't look like it's over enough to give him a strong transition or punching lane into Lomachenko's body, which is why he doesn't really feel confident to throw that like looping hook or uppercut to the body because it's too far away, right? So again, like Loma, right, taking advantage of the feet. So I guess that's true too, right? Like that's the other thing, is it's not just the uppercut, but it's also not just from a Devin Haney standpoint of like the uppercut having a clear angle and Lomachenko being closer, but it's also Loma knowing that like that option now is taken away because I've managed to get Devin Haney in a position where our feet are set up so that he can't use this punch now to control me, which makes it so I can just come in kind of freely, right? And again, you see the set, second set, and then when this foot comes down, boom, then he leaps and slaps that lead hand down, right? Which is kind of interesting because I think that's something that he doesn't do before that I kind of want to see. So where are we at? 320? Okay. Again, right? As we talked about before, right? That slip down, straight left hand probe. And again, right, you see, again, in this position, right, this is something else that he's learned. When I get to this position first, Devin Haney doesn't want to challenge me. Sometimes, right, depending on where he is, right? Range-wise, right, like when he can threaten him, Devin Haney doesn't want to challenge me. He just wants to control and move away. right? But he knows now, like we said up at the end of the round, he can't do that now because he has got nowhere left to run. So again, right, you see Devin Haney kind of staying low in this case because he doesn't want Loma to get under him, right? Which is why here he kind of takes this move first. I'm kind of interested to see if he knows how or why. If Devin Haney knows there's something here that lets him take this step. Oh, okay. So there is actually a little something here that's kind of funny that I think Devin Haney sees because his right hand is a little down. He sees Loma's left foot right there, and that's why he like ducks. And it's also, I think, his right hand moving too, right? That Loma's left foot moves right there, and his front foot moves. Yeah, so it's both of those. And ironically enough, I think that might also be why Loma's doing that little stutter step feint in front of Devin Haney at the end of the round too. Because I wonder if he was actually kind of looking for that. He was looking for Devin Haney to bite and slip like he did before so he could counter him and then push him back upright with like an uppercut or something to start laying into him. But again, also, right, like we talked about before, now, right, Loma, in this case, right, his feet aren't quite in the right spot. His feet are a little too inside Devin Haney, so he doesn't have a room to punch with an uppercut here, which is why this works. That's why Devin Haney gets inside here. But if you look at the end of the round, right, back to like 318, 320, right, now look at where his feet are. Well, let's see where his feet are, right? Almost like this whole time, too, from the feet, right, doesn't quite get the angle. He's still too little inside. Doesn't quite get the angle. He's still a little too inside. Doesn't quite get the angle. Again, Devin Haney kind of jamming him up with his foot there. Still too inside. Devin Haney is outside of him, so he definitely doesn't have the angle there. But right here, foot's a little bit outside. And Devin Haney tries to jam him up again, but doesn't quite get it. And now he almost like hits his foot and feels that he's like outside. And that's why he's like, nope, now I got the angle I want. Now I'm outside of you, right? Now I have space and I have the angle to throw this left hand and to throw my shots. And now he's right where he wants to be, right? With his foot like around Devin Haney's foot. And he can throw that left hand right through Devin Haney's center line. So there's also that too, right? There's that little like stutter step. There's the range before that we talked about. I kind of want to see if there's something else here too. See, the other thing that he does here too that's also accomplished. So, right, how does Devin Haney stop Loma from getting in on him in this part of the round right here too, right? There's something interesting. He does the double jab or jab feint, right hand to the body here that maybe works / I don't know if it does, but that's not really the point. The point is he's in a position to throw it this time. Why? Back to the beginning. What matters the most? Real fans boxing always watch the feet, right? So look at their feet now, right? Devin Haney's outside of him. That's why is able to get outside of him. That's why he does this, right? And again, Loma this time, right, realized his mistake from this earlier engagement, right, where he was trying to corral Devin Haney and he almost let himself get too far inside of Devin Haney, right? And again, though, this is kind of like faking the up jab inward that we were talking about before that he was getting to, right? But now I think maybe he's realized, like, oh, I don't need this position for the up jab anymore because I've been able to get control like in other ways. Or I've been able to get into this range without having to do that, right? So now, right here, right, Devin Haney's able to slip down inside and push Loma back. And now when they readjust, right, Loma steps like up to the line with him. I think also you can look at Devin Haney's feet too, right? Look at where Devin Haney's feet are pointed, right? So whereas at the end of the round, right, Devin Haney's toes are pointed this way. And again, Loma, I'm sure, isn't staring at his toes, but you can kind of tell from like positioning of people's hips and such, and their knee is also the giveaway, where their toes are pointed, right? that Devin Haney's thinking, I want to go forward, right? Whereas, or I want to punch probably with this right hand, right, is like one of the things that you can do when your foot's already turned this way, which it ends up being exactly what he does, right? As soon as Loma comes forward, then he takes this step and then turns, right? And he can still kind of punch, but it's harder if your foot's not like turned straight out this way or turned straight this way. So what Devin Haney did that prevented Loma from getting up on him before, after this slip down, right, or what Loma did maybe, is that Loma stepped too far inside here, steps like a little too far inside, and then brings his back foot forward. Whereas before he tries to always stay like outside of Devin Haney as he herds him to the corner, right? And because he gets too far inside of Devin Haney times his step and moves outside him as he's trying to force him to the corner and is able to back him off, right? By contrast, go back to the end, right? Their feet keep jamming into each other, right? So this is Loma like almost like stepping, I suspect, let's see what happens. I suspect it's him stepping with Devin Haney so that they're lined up and stepping with each other, which, right, Devin Haney is jamming Loma's movement, but it's also not what was happening before, right, where their feet were not in exact sync, and then Devin Haney tried to time Loma and step around him as Loma stepped forward, right? As Loma stepped this way, Devin Haney stepped around him, but now Devin steps and he's taking really small steps, right? And also, right, talk about this a little differently. Before, right, Loma was on a blade this way. Now he's turned like on an angle this way, right? Again, trying to cut off the ring. And as Devin Haney steps, right, like we talked about your feet being a barrier, now he's kind of like stepping here, almost to probe and to push Devin Haney back. And again, not quite letting himself get as inside, moving his back foot this way instead of like further around, right? So he kind of gets this position almost right away, right? See how immediately after they break, he wants this angle, right? Unlike what he's been doing pretty much this whole time, where he's been very bladed this way, right? Again, has access to Devin Haney's center line too. They both have access to each other's center line actually, which is kind of funny here, because this is a very different angle than they've been like most of the fight. And again, right, using not just punches to control the space, but using foot feints and footwork, feinting, right? Usually a lot of the champions, the people who are best in the sport, have ways of manipulating their opponent that don't involve stepping or don't involve just punching, right? They're able to manipulate their opponent and cause them to do things without just punching. And this is Loma doing that. And so you see him kind of jam up Devin Haney's feet here. And again, step here so that he's like almost like outside Devin Haney a little bit, or not too far inside this time, right? Like his body weight's going this way. And then as soon as he does, right, he steps back so that Devin Haney can't just go around him again. And again, they try to like, he kind of tries to jam Devin Haney up again by just getting to the line first, right? He's on the line first before Devin Haney's feet are down, and that's why Devin Haney doesn't want to challenge him. So then he starts to get close to the line, or he starts to see Devin Haney, I think, come up a bit, and so like jams him up. Devin Haney tries to get away, and again though, Loma's on the line first, right? And they take a small little step right when Devin Haney's going to step, and they step on each other's feet. So again, kind of jams him up. And then this time, right, I don't know if he quite gets to the line first. Let's look at this. Almost, kind of, right? Because I think he was looking to take another step, but he gets inside, almost like too inside Devin Haney. But I think maybe correctly reading, because so far it's been like probe, attempt at lead hand control, didn't work, feint, that maybe he's thinking jab is coming, and I guess reads or guesses it correct. And again, right, as soon as he does, right, like he takes this step back, which is also really tactical. Like it's not just a response to pressure too. It also opens up this space so that he can get around Devin Haney again. So Devin Haney can't just walk right around him and get lead foot dominance like he did before. Right, which is why the other reason why he takes this step back, not just to reset or get out of range, but also so that if Devin Haney tries to get around him, he can cut off the angle again. So again, that's another adjustment. And here, right, you can tell by his feet. Now he is kind of like almost too inside Devin Haney, but that's because he's making this angle this way. And I think he's kind of realized from how Devin Haney's been reacting up top that Devin Haney's not really thinking about their feet right now. He's more worried about Loma being about to punch him, which is why he's able to take that kind of foot positioning and get it to work. Now let's see if we can skim back through the rest of this to find any of the other times when Loma does something that works. Or that doesn't work, that ends up working later, I should say. Any of these other flurries. I feel like we just need that like circus music playing, like anyway, I'll save you my shitty circus noise sound effects. So let's see. Something else here that's interesting too, right? That left hook counter we talked about early on. He kind of gets caught by because he's a little bit too far away, right? This is something else too, right? Like we talked about the one thing he does that beats all the other things that you did this round, right? So there's also another adjustment, right? Like we talked about how that little dip, that like low approach did a lot of things. But what it also does here, right? Like he gets caught because he doesn't like fully, he realizes like he can't put too much pressure on Devin Haney or Devin Haney's going to punch at him, right? So he's like just easing in, right? But he like he sticks around in this range too long without like moving in and out. So Devin Haney just moves forward, steps around him, and throws that left hook. And I would say again, right, this is, look at their feet. Devin Haney's foot's like outside of his. There it's not. There he's outside of him. Here they're actually on top of each other. But I think he kind of realized that he wasn't winning those engagements because right here, like he hasn't won the last few engagements, or no one's like clearly winning or losing. They're kind of both just like feinting at each other and probing, right? Whereas he realized before, like Devin Haney didn't want to take that risk of jumping around him like he does right here, because he had stuffed the last like 3 things that Devin Haney had tried to do at the end of the round, right? But the other thing, right, because I don't think I ever actually said it, that his like low approach at the end of the round does is it gets away from this left hook, right? It ducks under it preemptively, right? He's not really there to be hit because Devin Haney's standing up. He's low. If Devin Haney throws the left hook, he just slips or rolls under it, right? And his head's like almost already there. And again, right, this is the other thing too that he realizes. Like, I got hit here because Devin Haney level changed on me first. So how do I beat that? I level change first and don't let him do it. Right? So that's the other reason why that sort of like low dip works. In addition to, right, like we talked about, the foot moving in and out and how he gets hit. He maybe feels like he gets hit here because he sticks in range for too long and isn't moving in and out or doing anything. He's not active enough. Right? And again, you can tell, right, because of the way the foot feints and everything else have worked. He's kind of able to jam Devin Haney up throughout the round and maybe take away some of that offense that Devin Haney starts out with. I kind of want to see something else, right? So let's see, right? Again, I'm watching at high speed. Some other patterns of this round. I wonder if Devin Haney counters him a lot when he comes back to neutral. Let's see. Because you'll notice Loma doesn't do that a lot. He doesn't really slip outside at the end of the round because he realizes every time I come back to center, Devin Haney's trying to control me. Right, so slip outside, jab to the body, right hand. Slip outside, jab to the body, right hand. Slip outside, jab to the body. Or jab, sorry. Not doing anything, sticking to range too long, Devin Haney throws a jab. Right? But this kind of works. Not the slip, sorry. Not this one. Now it's moving too fast for my own good, lol. Man, it almost looks like it's slow motion now compared to before, even though this is, I'm pretty sure this is normal speed. Slip. Jab. Love Loma. The audacity. Slips right again. So again, this is kind of the other thing that that he's learned, right? There's like one or two things here throughout the round, right? Which is, one, if I stand in front of Devin Haney for too long and I don't do anything, Devin Haney's going to punch at me, right? If I hang out in this position and I don't move in and out of range or control him or do something, he's going to punch at me, right? But the other thing he kind of learns here is that that kind of works, right? Or at least doesn't get a reaction right away. So the other thing that he learns is that Devin Haney doesn't want to be predictable, which is good, but he's using that against him because he's saying, oh, Devin Haney, if I do this enough times, right, if I lean outside enough times, you won't react every time, right? He doesn't do anything there, even though he's reacted the last like 3 times. And that gives him a little bit of space, right? And then the other thing too, right? When he dips down with the level change and doesn't just slip but dips down, that gets Devin Haney to kind of back off, right? Let's see now. And again, right, here's that high setup we were talking about where he sets, pops, and tags him with a jab, right? And that's why he does those little pop steps in the corner at the end of the round. And again, with Devin Haney, when he dips low like this, Devin Haney just wants to control me and get away, right? So that's the other reason why he kind of realizes that that ends up working. And this up jab, like we talked about, has established that as a threat, which is why Devin Haney didn't want to just slip down in front of Loma when Loma has already dropped down, right? Or doesn't want to stand maybe too tall. Like he's wary of this. And again, here we see, right, like the feint in place jab. Doesn't quite get there. Step in place, jab, 2, 3, and the uppercut does work, right? So again, that's something useful that he kind of takes away from this engagement. But the other thing, right, like we talked about before, that he does learn is that he's too deep here, right? He realizes he's both too wide, right? He's not close enough to Devin Haney. He wants his foot to be more this way, his right foot, his lead foot. But he's also stepped too deep, and that's why Devin Haney's able to kind of get away here. So he makes that adjustment again at the end of the round by sticking to him like fucking glue so that Devin Haney can't just get away like this, right? So there's all sorts of little things. And again, like I said, he takes this this realizing that he's had success with this before in the round, where he does this high step, no reaction, and he's able to get in, and then he does that to start the engagement with Devin Haney at the end of the round and combines it with a couple of other things that we talked about. Again, deep level change, no control. He just comes back, and then Devin Haney starts to try to control him. And Devin Haney also dips too, right? again, right? When Loma dips, Devin Haney just wants to control him and back off, right? So that's the other thing Loma kind of realized. I'm interested to see what happens with this, if that comes back to have a payoff later. And again, Loma rising, learning from the lesson before. Devin Haney gets low like this, it's because he wants to throw body shots, right? So I don't want to be anywhere near him when he's like that, right? Or I don't want to approach him if he's already down there first. And again, right, Loma again establishing that up jab as a threat. Even if it doesn't actually land, right, it's getting Devin Haney to think about it, to realize that that's a threat, so he can't just slip and drop down. This is interesting. Ah, yeah, there's that sequence we talked about before. Here's the other thing, though, right, that Loma learns immediately that does work here, is, again, this, like, high set where he doesn't dip. He just kind of pops his feet and just leaps in with a jab and does get the distance right this time, right? Which is why he's able to land that jab well. And even though none of these punches quite land, because they all hit the guard, unlike before, where he kind of missed, right, with some of those shots, or was too far away, now he's just close enough. And these shots, even though they hit on the guard, hit a lot harder than what he threw before, right? So again, there's that other adjustment too, just where he's putting his feet when he gets close to Devin Haney like this. Which again, like we said, he also makes at the end of this round. Now this is interesting. This is like the one time Devin Haney kind of dips with him and tries to throw that body shot. Which again, like we said, is why Loma wants to get there first. I'm curious to see what happens here and why this doesn't work, right? What if he gets too deep again? This is him trying to build off that up jab that we talked about before, right? That he's been doing. Jab on the inside, or inside jab, I should say, maybe. To then throw the straight left hand, which doesn't quite work. And then, right, this is also an adaptation, actually, too. Because this is the mistake that he corrects later, right? He realizes, oh, if I pivot and take this outside angle on Devin Haney, he's just going to push me or walk away, right? So that's why he does what we talked about before at the end of the round, where instead of when he's here, not here, sorry, when he's here in front of Devin Haney, he doesn't pivot out. He stays right here and shoves him back, right? And that's what lets him score. Let's see if we can scavenger Waldo hunt for maybe one more interesting thing this round before we tie a nice, neat, pretty bow on this 2 hour plus whatever. Again, Loma kind of realizing if I'm just kind of here, probing in front of him, staying in range for too long, right? He's going to try to control me. But if I like move in and out, he doesn't react as much, right? Again, here he's probing, looking for that control Devin Haney did earlier, where Devin Haney dipped with him, right? But because he realizes, oh, Devin Haney, he thinks or realizes that like Devin Haney wasn't really dipping with me to read me, right? Like Teofimo was. Devin Haney was just going for his own body shot at about the same time that I dipped. He's not trying to do that intentionally to control me, right? But that's what he's probing for, to see if he's going to do that again. And again, so continually probing, approaching from the high stance, right, like he has before, that he's had some success with, to see, okay, now if I do this, what do you do? See the long looping left jab over the top, right? And again, slightly lower approach, where he's like half set. Again, this is kind of what he does at the end of the round. He's able to jam Devin Haney up and push him back. And then he's able to come in here, and slip under, right? And then come back up and almost control Devin Haney's hand. And he realizes that he's mostly winning that exchange. Even though Devin Haney does kind of like push him away there, that he's able to close distance, which is what he wants. And then here we see he's able to do something that he starts to do right here, where he gets his hand over top of Devin Haney's after he comes back up to parry it down and check it down, which is what lets him get close to Devin Haney here, right? Checks that hand down. Devin Haney can't do anything with it. It's like, oh shit, I got to disengage. And that's when Loma wants to feint him to try to get him to step or set his feet. And then he tries to jump all over him, right? See here, this is what I was kind of talking about before, where he gets too close to Devin Haney, and now their shoulders are like on top of each other. Because he comes in high and doesn't react to the fact that Devin Haney is dipping, right? Whereas before, he realizes when I dip to this sort of like halfway down spot, Devin Haney either stays high, or I think it was before this actually, right? Will like stay at that height with me. It's not that one. It's this one right here. Yeah, this one. When they like kind of half set, Devin Haney like half sets with him, right? And then when I dip all the way down, he doesn't dip with me, is what he's realizing, right? He just stays high. But he's realizing the problem when I come in too high sometimes is that Devin Haney just slips and rolls under me and I can't do anything about it, right? So that's also why you'll see, like I said, at the end of the round, Loma does that. Whoop, hello. Does that like half set, and it works, right? If we get to the end of the round, right, he does this like half set, and then Devin Haney like half sets with him, and they kind of just like jam each other up and cancel each other out, right? Half sets, he half sets with them. Comes in high, gets control. I think that one might have been more because of the feet. High sets, dips down, right? Comes back up, no control yet. Again, he realizes like the jab's probably coming because he's been in mid-range for like a little bit. And now when he comes back in, he half sets, doesn't see Devin Haney level change to control him, and now he knows probes again. And then because Devin Haney does nothing, he knows it's safe. And that's why he wants to check that lead hand down to get that hook and get that jab and stiff arm that were keeping him away before out of the way, so he can throw these shots. So there you go. There's your like 15 things for round one. Almost like 2.5 hours of content. So hope you enjoy.